We start with LibertyNation.com legal affairs editor and constitutional lawyer Scott Cosenza. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Tim.
So, Scott, the elite media is attempting to force fixate the American public on the story of how great the economy is and the millions of jobs added since Trump became president. Wait, no, that's not it. It's all about a fixer paying off a hooker. So let's play this game along with them. What are the actual laws, the statutes, relevant to the Michael Cohen so-called hush money given to the two paid women, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, and whether Trump might have broken any laws?
So Cohen pleaded guilty to campaign finance law violations, that he expanded money or spent money in advance of a candidate for office and didn't go through the proper channels. He says he knew it was illegal when he did it, and he did it anyway. And that constituted his allocution, or, the statement he made to the judge in court commensurate with his plea agreement. So the chattering classes, Mr. Cohen's attorney, Lanny Davis, say that if Cohen is guilty of these crimes, then so is Trump. And in Mr. Cohen's case, in any way, expanded or spent to advance that candidacy, that is a violation of the federal law.
Cannot Trump claim, and rightfully so, that he contributed something like $60 million to his own campaign, that part of that was used as a settlement, which, as I understand it, a candidate giving an unlimited amount of money to his own campaign is perfectly legal, and therefore that money being used from him to pay off these women constitutes nothing illegal. Or where am I wrong?
As I understand it, if that were the case, then that money has to still be reported, Tim. And so for Trump not having reported that campaign contribution, then he would have violated the law. So if it was a campaign contribution, it seems like then quite clearly federal law was violated. Now, if you want to consider an analysis where campaign law and federal criminal law is not violated by Donald Trump, I think there's a very clear path forward there. And you can read more about my analysis on that at LibertyNation.com. But I would say that briefly, it's that Mr. Trump's intent is what matters in an analysis of whether or not he broke the law. If he expanded or spent money in order to influence an election, then he may have had to report that money as a campaign contribution. If, however, he spent money in order to prevent a embarrassing private fact from becoming publicly revealed, and the suppression of that fact just happened to benefit his campaign, but also more substantially in his mind happened to benefit his familial relations or his interpersonal relations or his just reputation generally, well, then it was not a crime.
I thought it was interesting that Cohen said that he was told by Donald Trump to make these payments, quote, for the purpose of influencing the outcome of the election. Can you imagine Donald Trump sitting there saying, well, Michael, I want you to make this payoff in order to influence the outcome of the election?
I'm glad you said that. So I've heard that reported, Tim, and then I actually read yesterday the full transcript of the court proceedings, and Mr. Cohen did not say those words. So he said them about himself. He said, for the purpose of influencing the election. Okay. But he didn't say, as you caught, and I saw that reported as well in outlets, and I thought it was fantastic when I saw it reported, right? Like, that sounds like an awfully stilted way for anyone to speak, much less Donald Trump, right? But that's not what Cohen has alleged that Trump said.
Right, but it comes off as if Trump said that to him rather than him saying that right. himself. So it's all about positioning. Let's move on to another element of this, the unfortunately named David Becker.
Or for our purposes, perhaps fortunately named. Go ahead.
Chief executive of the company that publishes a National Enquirer, has now been granted immunity by federal prosecutors for providing information about Cohen and Trump. Is this a matter of getting or trying to get both Cohen and Becker to provide the same answers to questions that might incriminate Trump if it comes from more than one source that makes it more credible? How big a danger do you think this is for the president?
First, we have to establish if this was a campaign contribution, meaning the suppression of the story. That is where I think the crux of this thing lies. If it's legally speaking, if it's granted that that is the case, then I think the president has some problems with respect to for his criminal culpability, because it seems clear that he did try to conceal these funds. Now, I don't think it was. I think that the president of the United States, or then Donald Trump, before he was president of the United States, probably would have paid her off anyway, because he wished to, keep this information.
Well, perhaps
private.
for the sake of his own marriage. I mean, it
Tim,
could have been for
exactly
personal reasons.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Trump doesn't care what you say about him. He lives in the mud.
He's proven.
He cares, though, if his wife, how she feels about him. So, if you just look at the details of this case, it was several weeks just immediately past the birth of his son. I'm sure that Melania, whatever. I mean,
yeah. All right. Well, now the legal community is divided on whether a sitting president can actually be prosecuted while he's in office. Where do you come down on that question, and why?
Right. I like the legal community. It's like the LGBT community.
Well, but I've heard about as many people say that he can be as say he can't.
I would say the entire notion of America is that the president is not above the people, but one of the people, Tim.
Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being certain guilt, 1 being that Trump is as innocent as a dove, based on your study of the Cohen case, where would you place the likelihood of Trump being guilty of a misdemeanor or felony?
Oh, certainly he's likely guilty of both.
Really?
I would encourage everybody within the sound of my voice to read the book 3 Felonies a Day, which is a discussion about how the federal criminal law and regulations pursuant thereto have cast a net so wide that anybody with significant political, business, financial dealings, international trade, you name it, you can't operate without committing several felonies. And that's the premise behind the book. And I believe that President Trump is guilty. And I would say that without question, that was true for Barack Hussein Obama. That was also true for George W. Bush. It was also true for Clinton and Bush before him. They are all multiple felons when it comes to the election code.
Okay, I think you've made a significant point. And we've talked about before the fact that there's so many federal laws, so many federal statutes that they actually physically can't be counted. So the point you're making is that if they want to find something, they'll be able to, or they can produce a process crime in the course of the investigation where someone is found guilty because of the investigation and not anything that they've actually done.
And for Trump, I don't think we even need to get that far. I'm sure he's actually committed felonies just because of how the law is worded.